Hello, everyone. My name is Christine Whelan, and I teach at the University of Wisconsin at Madison in the School of Human Ecology. I am known as the Happy Professor because I teach a class called Consuming Happiness, which I created more than 8 years ago, about how we try to buy happiness successfully and unsuccessfully in the market economy. And so tonight I've been invited to give a little bit of a mini lecture to you guys. And my hope is that I'll talk for about, 35, 45 minutes, and then we will leave questions to at the end. And then we should have 15 minutes or so for questions and hopefully a good discussion. Because what I am hoping to do this evening is to talk about a couple things. I'm hoping to address this big question. Can money buy happiness? Well, you know that the famous song, you can't buy me love, right? But can you buy happiness? Can you buy happiness just by buying a thing? Can you buy happiness by buying an experience? Can you use your money in some way to maximize your well-being? And in the class that I teach at UW-Madison, one of the counterintuitive things that I say is that, yes, you can buy happiness if you know how to spend your money right. And so that's what I want to talk to you about today. I want to talk to you about the various different ways that we try to buy happiness in the market economy. So the first way that we try to do it is through buying things, or in fact, even before things, we can buy the building blocks of things. So let's take the coffee example, shall we? Let's say you want to make yourself a cup of coffee. Well, the first thing you could do is you could buy buy a commodity. You could buy the coffee beans themselves, right? They would be fairly inexpensive. You could buy them, you could grind them up, and then you could steep your coffee and make your coffee. Or you could buy the good, which is the pre-ground up kind of coffee that you would buy at the grocery store. You'd take a scoop of that, mix it with some water, and make a fairly inexpensive cup of coffee that way, right? So this is the way I think most of us grew up thinking about your standard morning cup of coffee. If you were very fancy, you might grind it your own. Otherwise, you would buy it in a container. But then there's a little bit of a higher level of buying a cup of coffee. You might go to a restaurant. You might go to a diner. You might have somebody serve you a cup of coffee. And that kind of cup of coffee will cost a little bit more. And that is buying a service. Now, though, when we think about buying coffee, we take it even a step further. Now we are heading into the realm of buying an experience. For any of you who have been to Starbucks, you know that there is a particular language to ordering a Starbucks cup of coffee, right? You have to order in the right order. It's not a large, it's a venti, right? You have different language associated with it. What this does is create a special experience around buying something that, in fact, you could probably make at home for just a few cents. But instead, you spend maybe $5 on a very fancy kind of cup of coffee. Maybe the barista knows your name. Maybe the barista knows your order. Maybe it's the same experience that you have, or a community that you feel that you belong to when you pay that extra money and get that Starbucks coffee. No judgment. I am a Starbucks aficionado myself, mind you. But what I'm pointing out here is we spend money in 2022 on experiences. And we spend more money, and we are willing to spend more money on experiences because we believe that that is one way that we can buy happiness. So this is one of the things that I talk about in Consuming Happiness. I talk to my students about how you can buy happiness and whether, in fact, it is better for you as an individual to grind your own coffee, to spend a little bit less, or to spend money on that higher order experience. We spend a lot of time talking about that in the class because some of my students are going into marketing and advertising, and they're going to be heading into the world where these issues are really important in terms of working for their companies and selling products. But today, I want to take it a little bit of a step further because I think we're not just in that experience economy. I think we're not just buying experiences anymore, like a Starbucks coffee, but I think now we are really heading into a new economy, one that I'm calling the well-being economy, where what we are trying to do is not just consume an experience, but really to consume happiness and well-being. How do we use our money to try to maximize our well-being? And so there are three ways that I think we should talk about this well-being economy, so that you can understand it and we can have a discussion about whether you think that the well-being economy is the right term for where we are right now, and in the post-pandemic reality, are we really being successful in the well-being economy? So the first element of the well-being economy is what I think of as a balance of me and we. I am in the School of Human Ecology at the University of Wisconsin at Madison. So I want to tell you a little bit about this idea of an ecological approach to spending and saving that not only looks at us as individuals, but looks at a community. We're also going to look at the idea of purpose, and particularly this idea of purpose before paycheck, asking why it matters to you rather than just the how of how to get it done. So we'll talk about that. And then the final thing I'm going to talk about today is this idea of, are we moving into a period in our economy where we're looking at access before acquisition? And I want to bring in an old word, thrift, and put it into a modern spin as we talk about the sharing economy and that's looking like right now and what it might look like in the future. So those are the three things that I want to do this evening. So let's start with this idea of getting from just happiness and a happy experience to well-being. And to do that, it's not just about you as an individual, it's about a balance between me and we. And here's what I mean. So researchers in the last couple decades have done some really fascinating experiments with money. And what they find is that folks who engage in pro-social behaviors tend to have greater well-being. What that means when it comes to money is that if I were to give you $20 and tell you to spend it in a way to make yourselves happy, you would be much more likely to get that happiness boost if you spent it on somebody else, for somebody else, or with somebody else, than if you just went and purchased a thing for yourself. So what researchers have done is they've done this in college towns. They've done this in Russia, in Africa, in Asia. They've done this all over the world. They've given people money and they've asked some people to spend it on themselves and other people to spend it in a pro-social way, trying to do something nice for someone else. At the end of the day, they measure how happy they are. And yes, time and again, whether you are looking in a rich culture or an emerging economy, whether you are looking at an individual who has a lot of money or a little, what we find time and again is that spending money in a pro-social way with others in mind tends to make us happier. The research is really quite clear on this. So this is worldwide. There is a consistent and causal impact on happiness when you spend your resources in a way that benefits others. Now, by the way, you yourself can be benefited along the way. So for example, I will be happier if I take you out to dinner. And I get the good dinner too, but I'm using part of my money so that you can join me in the experience. That's still a pro-social expenditure of money. It turns out that when you spend pro-socially on other people, it activates all sorts of parts of your brain that give you all the feel-good feelings, those reward centers of your brain. And as you get older, it turns out that giving and engaging in pro-social behavior, you tend to have better health, and it tends to have a positive impact on longevity. So pro-social spending, so thinking more about the we and rather than just thinking about the me when it comes to spending, that's one really good way to try to consume happiness. But happiness is about balance. And this is something that I don't think people talk about as enough. You need to engage in self-transcending behavior where you are doing things for other people. You're coming outside of yourself. You're transcending yourself and doing this pro-social spending. But you also want to engage in self-enhancing behavior, investing in yourself, making sure that you as an individual are secure. If you engage in too much pro-social activity, you may not have anything left to continue to give. You may not have anything left in the tank yourself. So while it is wonderful to be as charitable as we can, know that happiness and financial well-being is that balance of self-transcending and self-enhancing. And all of us know kind of which way we go out of balance. There's some of us that are really good at taking care of ourselves and need to think about others a bit more. And then there are others of us, the opposite is true. We're always giving and giving, and we need to make sure that we have enough fuel in our own tank. So that's that first point. The second point is a point of purpose. And so this is what I always tell my students. It's important to ask why it matters before how to make it happen. And I want to talk about this in a money context, and we can talk about it in a work context and in a life context. And this is where I'm hoping that we can get a little bit personal as well. So your purpose is the why behind what you do. Goals are the things that you say you're going to do to head in the right direction. So if you think about it as the why behind what you do, that purpose, that's your eventual destination, where you're trying to move toward. And goals are the stepping stone along the way. The challenge, though, is that sometimes we mix them up. I'm sure this has happened to you at least once in your life, where you accomplish something big and you feel like, gosh, I should be so excited about it, but you feel a little bit let down. Like, so what? Why am I not feeling as good as I should? I worked so hard. Well, that's probably because you mixed up the why and the how. You might have thought that your purpose was to get a promotion. Your purpose was to meet your retirement goals. Well, really, those are goals on those are stepping stones on this larger path. And the purpose is the why. Your purpose is why all of these goals actually matter. So I want to sort of take you on a little bit of an exercise to ask that question of why. And this is kind of a daunting question, because if I just asked you to sit down right now and write your purpose statement, my bet is that you'd be staring at a blank piece of paper for a long time. These are pretty big and deep questions. So instead, I want to demystify purpose for you a little bit. And I want to give you a definition, and then I would encourage you to grab a paper and pencil, or you can do it on your computer or on your phone, and take some notes as we build your personal purpose statement brick by brick. Now, I use this metaphor of building things brick by brick because one of my favorite allegories, really, it's a parable maybe, is of the traveler who came across three men working. And he asked the first man, "What are you doing?" And the first man said, "I'm putting one brick on top of the other." And that was very much true. That was what he was doing. He asked the second man. The second man said, "I'm building a wall." That was also true. The third man said, "I'm building a cathedral." And that was true too. Now, all three men answered accurately. But interestingly enough, they were all actually doing the same thing. They were all doing what the first man said, right? They were all putting one brick on top of the other. But what was different was their understanding of why they were doing it. So the first man was putting one brick on top of the other. He had a job. He was simply focused on the action that he was undertaking. The next man had a career. He could sort of see a general reason he was trying to build walls. The third had a purpose or a calling, because he could see that what he was doing was laying bricks and building walls to build something larger and more meaningful. And in our lives, we are all like these bricklayers. We are all putting one brick on top of the other, and sometimes it can be pretty unglamorous and difficult work. But the hope is that, like that third man, we can see the larger purpose behind the efforts that we're engaging in, the larger why behind what we do. And so I want to sort of give you a little bit of an exercise to help you strengthen your sense of purpose, to help you do just that in your own life. And so for some of you who may be listening and saying, oh, no, I don't want to do anything interactive, bear with me. If you just play along, I promise there's a little payoff here. All right. So I'm going to ask you 3 questions. The first question is probably the hardest. The first question is, what are your 3 core values? What are the 3 values that you want to guide you in your life? Now, if that's too big of a question, we can hone it down. Perhaps you want to think about the 3 core values you want to guide you in your professional life, or in your family life, or in your volunteering and your community life. Think about the realm in which you feel comfortable looking at this question, and pick 3 core values that really speak to you. Now, this list of values comes from a researcher named Shalom Schwartz, who did a worldwide survey of universal values. And if you're like me, you look at this list and you say, yep, all these look good. I'd like to pick all of them. But the thing is, we can't, because some of them are more like shoulds, things that we think we should value or that other people want us to value. Whereas others of these may actually be things that we value ourselves. And as we go through this exercise, this is the toughest question, because even though values are so core to the life that we live, we don't often think about what our really primary values are. And since values often collide, you have to make choices about which values are really going to guide you. So pick 3 that kind of speak to you in any of these aspects of your life. The next question is, what are you good at? What are your gifts and strengths? Now, we all have superpowers, and it is really important to take a moment to think about what those are. Now, when we think about our superpowers, and I've put some up here as some possibilities if you need some help for what your strengths and gifts might be. When we think about our superpowers, we want to think about not just can-do skills, not things that we can do, but things that we want to do, things that we enjoy doing. I'm very good at loading the dishwasher, but that is not something that I'm going to put on my list of key strengths, right? It's not something that I particularly want to do all the time, or something that I find flow in doing. So think about 3 gifts or strengths that you can do, that you're good at, and that you enjoy doing, and write those down. All right. So you have your 3 values, you have your 3 strengths. And the final question is, who do you want to positively impact? Think about individuals or groups. Think about causes, communities. Who do you want to make a difference for and with? What ideas are you passionate about? List 3 groups or causes or people that really you want to help, that you want to work with, that you want to partner with, that you want to use your gifts in keeping with your values to make a positive impact on, and write those down. So now you should have 9 terms. You should have 3 values, 3 gifts and strengths, and 3 impact groups or individuals. All right. And then I'd like to do a little bit of a Mad Libs exercise. So I encourage you now to fill in the blanks a bit here. Because I value, and now you write in your values, I'm going to use my gifts for, and you write in those gifts, to positively impact, and then you write in the people that you're going to positively impact. What I love about this very simple exercise is that this is the beginning of a draft of a purpose statement. And by breaking things into small steps, it kind of demystifies a really daunting kind of task of creating a purpose statement, and hopefully turns it into a fairly pleasurable exploration of possibilities. Now, your statement may not be grammatically correct. It may not look right exactly. That's fine. The idea is to edit it and think about what it should be until it makes you sing. So, for example, this is mine. Because I value relationships, perseverance, and creativity, I'm going to use my gifts for translating research, making connections, and organization to positively impact the lives of my children, my students, and the broader public. This has been my purpose statement for years. And when I read it, I always check myself and I say, is that right? Yep. Yep, it is. That is correct. And I'm proud of it. And I want to live up to that. And it's a way that sort of helps guide and orient me if I'm making decisions. Is this in keeping with my values? Am I using my gifts? And every day I want to be able to be living my values and using my gifts, or at least some of them, and making a positive impact on those that I care about. Anytime, though, that we engage in something like a purpose statement exercise, anytime we think about questions of purpose or behavior change or meaning, all these really big ideas, we're kind of like this fish. I love this image because this is this fish who is in a small pond and jumping into a big one. And I have anthropomorphized this fish many times. I would imagine this fish is saying, oh my goodness, am I going to make it? Am I going to make the leap? And that's how we all feel in our lives. Having a sense of purpose makes us realize why we are making the jump and making the leap. I don't know, maybe the fish is pushed by pain. Maybe there's salt water in there. Maybe the fish is pulled by possibilities and it realizes that there's a big, cool, lovely tank on the other side. In your life, you've been pushed by pain, you've been pulled by possibilities. But asking these questions of purpose and values is a really important step toward consuming happiness because, quite frankly, it guides us in terms of how to spend our limited resources. So this brings us to the third point. And this third point is a fun one for me because I want to reintroduce the word thrift. So thrift is a word that it's an old word. It's a wonderful word. And my 18 to 22-year-old students often don't know what it means. They say thrift, you mean like a thrift store where I buy old and used stuff. So thrift means old and used. No, I say no, that is not in fact the definition of thrift. One of the things that's exciting is that I teach in the School of Human Ecology. And the School of Human Ecology has always been a place of thrift in action because for many years it was the home economics department. So consumer science, my department, used to be home economics. And in home economics, what you learn how to do is use your resources to maximize well-being. So thrift is making the wisest use of all the things that we have, not just money, but our environmental resources, our time, our energy, all of these things, to maximize all of these things to promote our own flourishing as individuals and the social good. So what I love about this definition of thrift is that it's got everything kind of all wrapped into one, right? So we have the idea of making wise use of things. So making smart decisions in keeping with your values, using your gifts and strengths to make a positive impact on others. So thrift and purpose really go hand in hand. And thrift and pro-social behavior very much go hand in hand. So I'm kind of on this thrift movement warrior thing where I'm trying to reintroduce the proper definition of thrift because it's a really beautiful concept that I think can help us consume happiness in the best ways. So if you think about that exercise we just did around the purpose statement, the first question I asked you was, what are your core values? And so here's a little bit of a challenge with that. You think about those 3 core values that you listed, and now think about the last 3 things that you spent money on. Did you spend your limited resources in keeping with your values? Gloria Steinem once famously said that you can figure out what a person values by just looking at their checkbook. And I have to update this for my students. It's really looking at their banking app on their phone. But the idea is the same. that when we spend our limited resources, whether it be money or time, what we're doing is we're saying that this matters to us. And so at that intersection of your values and your money should be, ideally, your purpose and your plan for life, where you are headed. Now, if I think about the last three things that I spent money on, sometimes I do better than others. Sometimes I try to rationalize that Starbucks latte as in keeping with my values, when really I know that I can make a much less expensive one at home and be just fine. But thinking of doing this exercise is a nice way to kind of check in with yourself. Another way to spend in keeping with your values is to focus on access rather than acquisition. And this is something that we are seeing increasingly in our market economy right now. So were I giving you this speech in person, I would hopefully be wearing one of my Rent the Runway dresses that I love to rent to give speeches and lectures. I love renting clothes because I can rent a $2,000 dress that I would never buy, and I can have access to that fun fashion, and then I can return it. Think about when you call an Uber or you do an Airbnb. All of these are ways that we are now sharing and using the sharing economy to have access to things without spending more than we actually need. Because I do not need a $2,000 dress, that is for sure. But it's much more fun for me to wear it once and then send it back. I do feel like I kind of need my $150 membership to Rent the Runway each month, because it gives me access to all of these dresses so that I can present in person and with my students, and that I can present the consuming happiness message that I want to have. This is where access can actually be more valuable than acquisition. And this is a really kind of thrifty idea that we're engaging in our current economy, right? Because thrift is about using your resources to maximize not only your well-being, but the well-being of others. And if you are engaging in the sharing economy, potentially you will create less waste. Perhaps there will be less things thrown away or houses left empty. So can thrifty choices be both fun and purposeful? Can you engage in things that you are passionate about, that you really care about, and maximize your resources in keeping with your values? The answer is yes. And I have this lovely little pun that I read in a book years ago. That word passion is really terrific. So passion is about passing the I on. So passion is not just about you. Passion is pro-social. Passion then is about passing on what you have, the gifts you have, in a pro-social way to others. And if you notice, the I in passion then is not capitalized. It's not about you. It's about the things that we bring to the world and that we can share with the world. So yes, thrift can be passionate in this sense, purposeful, pro-social, and very much in keeping with our values. So here are these consuming happiness principles that we've gone over here, right? So we have a balance of me and we, right? So can we take a human ecological approach to spending and saving, thinking about pro-social behavior? And the answer is yes, I think we can. And that is in fact what I teach at UW-Madison. Can we think about purpose before paycheck? Certainly, we can do that too. And asking those questions of purpose and meaning formation are really important. I will do a little caveat here, though, that purpose and paycheck don't have to be antithetical. So you can, in fact, get a paycheck and pursue your purpose. They, in fact, don't even have to be the same thing. You can do very meaningful work that is not in keeping with your individual purpose, because maybe you could have a purpose that you live out through your hobbies or through your volunteer work, but your very meaningful paid work is what's supporting your family, right? So purpose and paycheck can very much go together. They don't always have to be together at the same time. And you very well can have a very high paying job that is also purposeful as well. So you can ask these questions of purpose and meaning, what matters, why it matters, and how to make it happen. And then finally, really embracing this idea of thrift, but in a modern sense. I think fewer and fewer people darn their socks like you may have been taught in home economics, but many more of us are still making our dinners at home. And we are, and we're doing that not just because it is a cost saving or calorie saving event, but because we're doing it with passion and purpose, because we are engaging in a creative act and sharing a meal with our families. So we can think about this, this idea of modern thrift, and we can also think about it in terms of access rather than acquisition. Do you really need to buy something and have it yourself? Or does sharing it, like an Uber or an Airbnb or rental clothes, actually give you what you need? So as we go through this, I want to sort of list a couple of ways that you can put this into action yourself. So the first is to spend pro-socially on experiences rather than things, right? So there's lots of research that shows that retail therapy may make us happy in the short term, but it does not make us happy in the long term. Instead, going out to dinner with friends, spending time with those you love, investing in a charitable cause, or giving of yourself in terms of your time and your intellect and your strengths to work side by side with others. Those are pro-social experiences, and you can spend your time, your energy, your money pro-socially on experiences to maximize your happiness. You can invest the gift of time, not just money. I had an ex-boyfriend once who was very frustrated with me because he said, "Why can't I just buy you something and make you happy?" And I thought to myself, oh, this is not a good sign. So what he was trying to do was just spend money and not spend the effort. But as so much of our lives, we really know that actually sometimes taking the time to be present with somebody, to give of yourself, those are often much more valuable gifts than spending a lot of money and just buying something. When you do spend your money, spend it as a way to potentially free up your time to do things that bring you more joy. So there's lots of research that in fact, if you spend money outsourcing things that you don't enjoy, for example, if you don't enjoy cleaning your house. Now, personally, I really enjoy organizing and doing deep, thorough cleans, but not everybody does. So if you don't enjoy cleaning your house, then potentially you might want to outsource that. But if you do outsource that and spend money to outsource that, that's great. But then are you using that time that you have purchased for yourself to do something that brings you joy? Because if you do something that is just another doldrum kind of chore, or if you fritter the time away watching TV or on the internet, you may actually not be using your money to maximize your well-being as effectively as you could. So when you buy services, think about, what am I doing with the time that I have purchased? And am I doing something that will bring me joy and happiness? Spending in keeping with your values. This is a very big one, and one that all of us probably struggle with every day if we were to think about it. One of my favorite exercises is to make a list of your core values and write it on the back of a business card, and then paperclip it to the credit card that you use most often. So then every time you pull out your credit card, you have to look at those core values and say, is this purchase that I'm about to make in keeping with those values? Yes, you can rationalize just about anything. And trust me, I have tried over the years, but it is still a good reminder to make sure that we are spending our money in ways that matter to us. Also thinking about it in terms of your time. I have a very good friend from college, Laura Vanderkam. She wrote a book called 168 Hours. You have more time than you think. And on her website, which is 168hours.com, I think, on that, you can download a free time diary. And what you do with this time diary is you do an inventory in 15-minute increments of your entire week for 1 week. See how you spend your time. And then you look at it. And then having a sense of how you spend your time is a really good indication for you then of, do you want to change how you spend your time? Spending your time and spending your money, spending your natural resources and your energy, all in keeping with your values, is a really good way to boost your happiness and well-being. So today is February 2nd. And I was on 2 nights ago, I was on live at 4 on the Chinese New Year, the Lunar New Year Eve on January 31st. And I don't know about you, but my 2020 did not start out as planned. I had all sorts of big ideas for what was going to happen. My entire family got COVID. I broke my foot. I mean, it's been a little bit crazy. So on January 31st, I decided I'm going to celebrate Lunar New Year now, and I am going to start afresh. And so for any of you who had a little bit of a false start to 2022, I encourage you to start afresh now. And it's Groundhog Day, right? So it's yet another holiday. We can embrace this, and you can make purpose-based commitments to do the things that matter most to you. So on my website, on ChristineWhelan.com, I have a bunch of free downloadable purpose statement exercises. And in those purpose statement exercises, you can do the first part of the purpose statement, which I talked you through here tonight. And then I also go a little bit deeper and encourage you to think about your fears and anxieties that come along for the ride anytime you make a change, and to make some purpose-based commitments to get it done. So we're still at the beginning of the year. I think now is a wonderful time to make some purpose-based commitments for the new year ahead, and to restart if you need to. So there's lots more information about how to do all of this in a couple sources. I wrote a book called The Big Picture, A Guide to Finding Your Purpose in Life. And I should have put a logo up for the new thing that I have up. If you are an Audible subscriber, I recently was an Audible original Great Courses bestseller with my Finding Your Purpose lecture series. So if you're interested in these topics of purpose and meaning formation and consuming happiness, and if you're a subscriber to Audible, it's totally free. And if you want to do a free trial, you can also get it for free. It is a 10 lecture course online where you can learn more about this. And then on ChristineWhelan.com, you can download all sorts more information and some free worksheets along the way, because consuming happiness is about living in keeping with your values and your purpose. It's about embracing thrift. And this image right here is a Wordle that I created with my students at the end of the semester. I asked them what were the core lessons that they learned in the class about how to consume happiness. And these were the words that they came up with. And so I will leave you with these and hopefully open it up for some questions. Here, we'll go back to that and we'll open it up for some questions. Let's see, Jenny, how do we want to do questions? Do we want to put them in the chat? Do you want people to ask them out loud?
Yes, we could do either way. If you want to raise your hand, how about I can call on you and you can read your question. You'll have to unmute yourself. And yeah, let's do it that way. Let me get everybody's view here.
And I have the chat open. So oh, good. Well, you're welcome, Albert. Thank you for joining this evening.
Let's see. Tell you what, if you have a question, why don't you just unmute and go ahead and ask.
Oh, here's a good one in the while people are thinking about questions. Here's a good one from Cameron in the chat. How often do you update your purpose statement? Excellent question. So the answer is, of course, it's up to you. During the pandemic, and I say that like it's in the past tense, who knows? But at various points in my life, I have done daily purpose statements. And I really enjoyed doing a daily purpose statement exercise. And on my website, you can download a daily purpose statement exercise form as well, because it made it a lot more manageable. And when I thought about my purpose-based commitments for the day, sometimes they'd be really pretty small, like, doing a baked potato bar for my family. But that was in keeping with my values. So I knew that I was going to be living my values and using my gifts and strengths in the day and impacting those that I cared about. You can do it in different aspects of your life. So you could do a family purpose statement and a work purpose statement. I've involved my kids in purpose statement exercises as well. And sometimes we have a family meeting and do a family purpose statement. You can do it with your teammates at work. And then you could also try to do one for the year ahead. For years, I would write a letter to myself on January 1st that I would read on December 31st of that year. And a purpose statement would be wonderful to do that there as well. So, and there's another really, really fun free resource called futureme.org. I'm not affiliated with them in any way, but I use this with my students. You can send an email to yourself via this Future Me website, and it will boomerang back to you in at whatever time period you choose. So in 6 months or 2 years or 5 years. And so if you ever wanted to write a purpose statement to yourself and then have it sent back to you, that's a free resource to be able to do that. Oh, yes. And Kathleen, yes, she said, have you heard or used the VIA Institute and character development? Absolutely. I know them very well. Martin Seligman, who was really the godfather of positive psychology, was very involved in that, and also Chris Peterson. And the VIA inventory is terrific. It's great on character strengths, and it is also free and available off of the University of Pennsylvania website. And then they have also all sorts of things that you can buy off of that as well. And Rob, to answer your question on advice for finding one's strengths, that via character strengths is it might be useful as well. But one trick that I usually like to get people to do is, why don't you ask other people? And see what they have to say too, because it's very interesting to hear what your friends and loved ones say your strengths are. And it also should make you feel pretty good about yourself, because the trouble with so many of us is that we think that we don't have any strengths or superpowers, that we're not really good at anything. But seeing it through another person's eyes, I think you will very much feel the love. And yes, that you wish positive psych was a thing when you were in college. Yeah, I'm teaching this consuming happiness course, and I'm actually teaching another course called From Depression to Thriving: The Human Ecology of Resilience, with my partner, who is a psychiatrist and depression researcher. And yes, these are all really big, important topics that certainly weren't around when I was in college either. Let's see, Cameron said, when you did daily purpose statements, did you ever have days when your activities did not necessarily align with your values? Oh, certainly. The thing is, if you're only picking 3 core values, then for your entire life, then obviously, there are going to be days when you're doing other things. But if you're doing a daily purpose statement, if you think about your day ahead, you might choose some different values to focus on those days. The idea with all these exercises is as kind of a choose your own adventure, and to test it out and see what works for you. There are a lot of those self-help books out there. I study the self-help industry that says it's my way or the highway. I am on the opposite end of that. I would like to give you exercises that you can redo and you can think about and you can edit to work for your life. It's really about asking the questions. Thank you, Kathleen, for messaging your daughter about my class. Yes, that's fun. Yes, she can sign up for them. Does the pro-social spending apply to non-monetary exchanges? Absolutely. Volunteering and organizing and getting engaged with the community is incredibly pro-social and wonderful work. Perhaps you've had the same experience that I've had, which is if you're having a bad day, going and doing something with other people and for other people kind of gets you out of yourself. It gets you out of your funk and your day turns around. So yes, pro-social activities like volunteering are wonderful ways to consume happiness, not just for yourself, but for the community. These are great questions. Anybody else have any ones that they want to chime in with? Oh, yes, I see Albert wrote in that Strength Finders is also amazing. Absolutely. The Clifton Strengths Finders are wonderful. And they can sort of tell you a lot about your strengths, particularly in a professional capacity. And taking the time to think about what you're good at and how to use those skills, it's a really wonderful way to boost your happiness. A lot of people, Albert, agree with you. And in fact, there's a book written a couple years ago called The Purpose Economy, written by a guy named Aaron Hurst. He started an organization called Taproot, and Taproot was about hooking people up who were like lawyers, for example. They were paid attorneys, and hooking them up with nonprofit assignments. And he was amazed that the attorneys who were doing probably the same kind of work that they would do in their day job, in their volunteer jobs, they enjoyed their volunteer jobs that much more. And that's in part because they were engaging in pro-social behavior. Oh, you know about Taproot. Oh, how wonderful. Yes. So the Taproot organization is great. And the Purpose Economy book is a really fun read and very much falls under the idea of the well-being economy that I was talking about this evening as well. Oh, can you tell us more about the Finding Your Purpose lecture series? How do you sign up? Oh, you're so kind to ask, Cindy. So audible.com is an audiobooks platform. And it's also, I think, owned by Amazon now. And if you remember the Great Courses lecture series from years ago, I used to listen to them on CDs in the car. Well, now they have partnered up with Audible to do these Audible original Great Courses lecture series. And so if you go onto Audible and you search for my name, for Christine Whelan, or you search for Finding Your Purpose, when you sign up for a free trial, you get a free credit. And so theoretically, you could sign up for a month and see if you liked it. And you could listen to my Audible original lecture series. And it talks you through all of this. I think there are 10 lectures each. They're about 30 to 45 minutes each. And I was pretty pleased with how they turned out. I wrote all the lectures myself. I performed all of them myself. And it's gotten a lot of, it's gotten like 4.5 out of 5 stars on Audible. And it was on the Associated Press bestseller list for top 10 audiobooks a couple months ago. So check it out. And if you like it, let me know. Oh, wonderful. Well, good luck to you, to Albert, as you think about your what's next. These are, midlife and any kind of life transitions where you are moving jobs or heading toward retirement or planning your what's next. These are all times where thinking about purpose and pro-social behavior, thrift, happiness, and meaning are all the more important. I have lots of senior auditors in my Consuming Happiness class, and I really welcome them because just like my college students, my college students are at a time of transition, and we think about transitions really mostly for young people, but that's just not true. We go through many, many life transitions, and it's important to ask these questions along the way.
All right. Any last questions? And again, if the chatting is a little difficult, feel free to unmute yourself and ask a question.
Well, Lynn, thank you so much. Yes, Lynn just said that she took my course as a senior auditor and loved it. Well, thanks for coming back for more. You've probably heard kind of a lot of this now, but glad to have you back. Wonderful to be reaching out to the UW Madison community. Oh, sometimes it seems like avoiding trouble becomes one's purpose. How do we avoid this? Wow, Brian, that is a very, very good and very deep question. Yeah. So sometimes the idea of trying to keep your head down and stay out of the fray when all sorts of things are going on around you that you don't want to get involved in, that's probably not your purpose. That's your goal. Your goal is to avoid trouble, hopefully so that you can channel your energies toward living your purpose, right? So if your purpose is why and the why and the what matters most to you, you're going to want to avoid the things that distract you from it. And it's very interesting. If we think about the people who are most successful in living their purpose, they tend to have that very single-minded approach. They are doing this one thing and they're really focused on it. But for the rest of us mere mortals, I encourage everybody to embrace a purpose mindset. And embracing a purpose mindset means asking these questions of what matters most and why it matters and how to make it happen, but asking them in the context of everyday life. So sometimes, yeah, you've got to keep your head down and avoid the trouble going on so that tomorrow you can have the opportunity to do the purposeful thing that you want to do. Purpose is very much something that you do, not something that you have. It is a verb, not a noun. So it's all about living your purpose. And it's a choice that we make every day.
Well, what an excellent place to end here. If no other questions, I just want to, on behalf of the Middleton Library community, thank you so much, Professor Whelan, for joining us here this evening. I know I learned a lot, and I like the there's always a holiday, or if you
that's right.
Start tomorrow.
There is always tomorrow. You can start afresh.
Absolutely. Again, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you all. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.